She was removed from a flight for appearing out of place. Just hours later, she caused them to lose $600 million. Simone Banner wasn't anticipating any special recognition. All she wanted was a quiet window seat. Having traveled to San Francisco to Newark route numerous times before, this journey had always been long and uneventful, perfect for reading, thinking, and preparing her thoughts. At 47 years old, she'd mastered the art of moving discreetly through life, without drawing attention to herself. Blazer paired with dark jeans, instead of heels or branded items on her tablet, with no loud phone calls disturbing others. A picture-perfect projection embodying stillness, combined neatly together, producing focus intertwined seamlessly within every movement made throughout each day lived, fully filled, endlessly forward-facing. Her boarding pass indicated she was seated into a first-class window seat. She favored the left side of the plane to avoid glare while reading. With her tablet tucked under her arm, she offered a gentle hello to the occupant of TBS before taking her seat. That should have been it. However, soon afterward, an inexperienced-looking flight attendant approached with a smile that didn't quite reach their eyes and said with some tension in their voice, "Excuse me, may I see your boarding pass again?" Simone blinked in confusion but complied by handing it over. The woman gazed at it longer than necessary before questioning, "Are you certain this is your seat?" "I'm into a," Simone replied calmly, "just as indicated." With a slight frown, the attendant muttered a quick, "Okay," and walked away without offering an apology or smile. Simone sensed the atmosphere change, a gut feeling of tension. When everything around becomes unnervingly quiet, people glance sideways discreetly. Someone adjusted their seat belt with unnecessary noise, yet she remained silent, concentrating on her notes. There was an acquisition meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. The following morning loomed, less than a day away. After months of negotiations nearing their climax, Avalon Dynamics was poised to acquire her companion, aware that she owned it. Not yet, at least. However, sometimes plans take unexpected turns long before the journey begins. 10 minutes went by, then 15 as passengers began boarding. Mostly business travelers filled the cabin gradually, along with some familiar faces from within the industry. Conversations were scarce amidst rustling jackets and stifled yawns, while Simone remained laser-focused on her tablet, reviewing projections intently, until two men entered aboard, decisively catching attention. The individuals were not airport personnel but security officers, dressed in blue uniforms with radios attached to their shoulders. There was a distinctive silence, a calm, before an impending awkward moment for someone else. The lead officers, who appeared taller and in his mid-40s, moved forward and spoke her name as if asking a question. "Ma'am, Simone Banner." She glanced up with confusion written on her face. "Yes," she replied. He requested softly yet firmly if she could accompany them off the aircraft for a moment. Instantly, the whole front cabin seemed to freeze in anticipation or concern about this unusual request. "Why?" Simone questioned while slowly tucking away her tablet into her tote bag. "Is something wrong?" The shorter officers glanced at the attendant lingering by the galley, evading eye contact. He returned his focus to Simone and said, "There's been a report about an issue with your seat. We need to verify some information." Letting out a brief breath that was part amusement and part irritation, Simone replied, "I've already shown my boarding pass twice." The officers remained firm in their stance. "We understand, but we need you to come with us." She paused for a moment before responding skeptically. She couldn't believe they wanted her to vacate the seat. she had paid for just so they could confirm something that had presumably already been checked. Unmoved by her resistance, the taller officers affirmed succinctly yet politely, "Yes, ma'am." She rose slowly, drawing the attention of everyone in first class. Her seatmate, a man seated in TBS, remained silent and turned his gaze to the window, as if it was none of his concern. The cabin stayed quiet. No one spoke up or intervened. She trailed behind the officers down the aisle, with her tote bag resting on her shoulder, and feeling her heart pounding like it hadn't since those early days when she pitched ideas across rooms, where they never expected a black woman at the head of discussions. Once out on the jet bridge, their lead officers paused and faced her. "We've confirmed your boarding pass is valid," he mentioned. There was an error. Simone narrowed her eyes. "An error?" she questioned, and he nodded in response. Apparently, the flight attendant merely thought to themselves, "Never mind." They apologized for the inconvenience, without any admission or acknowledgement of responsibility, just calling it a mistake. They offered her a chance to reboard, but she declined with composure and clarity. "I'll take the next flight," she said confidently. She requested them to send rebooking details instead of delivered. Without raising her voice or expressing anger or distress, she simply turned around and returned to the terminal. However, it was too late. The damage was done, and no one realized who they were dealing with. Simone bypassed grabbing a coffee or scrolling through her finesse, didn't even share her frustrations on social media. Instead, she sat her day by gate 14 in Terminal 3 with perfect posture, back straight as an arrow, legs crossed neatly while typing diligently into a folder marked contingency. A young gate agent approached cautiously, with a new boarding pass extended toward her. "Miss Banner," he said apologetically, "we've rebooked you onto the 6:40 p.m. flight in first class. Once more, we sincerely apologize for what happened earlier." Simone looked up and asked, her voice steady, "Do you know what the situation actually was?" The agent shifted uncomfortably. There was a seat mix-up, I think," he replied. Simone maintained eye contact. "That's what they told you?" She pressed further. He hesitated before responding. "That's all I was given, ma'am." He nodded in acknowledgement and thanked him as he quickly departed, turning back to her work with determination. She tapped on her tablet again to open the private notes. Prepared for tomorrow's boardroom presentation. Project of a link consisting of pages filled with data analysis, metrics insights from their latest ventures and detailed deal projections that depict just how underprepared those executives were when acquiring this startup poised not merely as another addition, but an essential player within their expansive aerospace tech portfolio. What nobody realized was that she was the founder, sole shareholder, and chief decision-maker of Banner Systems, the company they had been pursuing for 8 months. Her deliberate plan involved maintaining her privacy until necessary. She preferred to lead discreetly until everything was finalized. Only then would she reveal herself to the world. However, this deal fell through not due to financial issues or public embarrassment, but because she'd reached her limit. Now Avalon Dynamics would soon understand what that meant for them. She boarded the evening flight without any issues, taking her usual seat amidst a different crew. There were no apologies. This timidly rigid smiles and courteous nods as the plane took off from the runway. Simone closed her eyes and exhaled deeply. The sky outside was an impenetrable blackness, with not a single star visible. Not that it mattered to her. She had a clear objective ahead of her anyway, but wasn't destined for another boardroom upon arrival. She was aiming for the kill switch instead. Upon landing at Newark Liberty, She found car service already waiting as planned while midnight traffic remained light. Simone was quiet during the ride. 1. The driver inquired about her need for the ride. No. She simply shook her head, and he refrained from asking again. By 1:15 a.m., she had returned to her dimly lit Tribeca apartment, with the city's hum faintly audible outside. She slipped off her shoes, poured herself a small glass of ginger tea, and sat her day at the kitchen island where she opened her laptop. There was one new email waiting from Avalon's head of corporate development. Looking forward to finalizing everything tomorrow. The board is eager to meet you in person. She glanced at the screen for a moment before clicking reply. Subject: immediate change of plan. Banner: systems is ending all acquisition discussions with Avalon Dynamics and has decided against pursuing any partnership or merger. We see no need for further communication on this matter. Best SB with that. She hit send. There was no explanation attached, nor an extensive statement, just enough to leave them guessing amidst their confusion. Clarity wasn't something they had ever granted her. She owed them none in return. Simone leaned back and shut her laptop as the tea beside her grew cold and a notification buzzed on her phone. Simone received a message from her assistant. Avalon's team has already checked in for the 9 a.m. meeting. Should I cancel the room? She replied, cancel everything, and added, don't respond to press inquiries either. Let them speculate. Rising from her seat, she moved towards the window where New Jersey's distant lights flickered. From this perspective, everything seemed small and within grasp, yet just like that, due to an indescribable moment of confusion, at Avalon Dynamics, and they lost out on a $600 million deal. They assumed they were meeting just another vendor, signing off on yet another contract, conversing with an ordinary woman in C2A. However, by the next morning, her name would be known to them and the entire world. At precisely 7:43 a.m., Mitchell Corbin, CFO of Avalon Dynamics, stared at his phone incredulously, as if it had suddenly malfunctioned. He reread the email once more for clarity's sake and then again. Withdrawal immediate. No explanation provided. No additional follow-up given. Frustrated and seeking answers, he dialed Simone's team, but received only silence in return, as well as nothing further than their voicemail box upon subsequent attempts. As clock hands met together onto 8 o'clock sharp that day, amidst gathering pressure within Avalon Tower's stately boardroom located up 70 floors, high above Stamford cityscape below itself, hot coffee cooling untouched alongside open laptops. Before, while palpable waves, emotion coursing throughout such tense atmosphere, prevailed indeed, albeit across those present there inside thereof, all collectively aware something monumental having transpired overnight, perhaps being an imagination prior until now made manifest here. Truly, quite unlike anything ever experienced previously, certainly already noted to among others far-ranging elsewhere. Still starting become increasingly apparent everywhere, thus generally ultimately. Does anyone know what happened? Someone murmured. No, nothing. She just disappeared. She didn't vanish, Mitchell corrected. She sent a resignation note. But why would she do that right before signing? Heads turned. Questions hung in the air without answers. Legal attempted to reach her, and PR was informed of the situation. Quiet panic ensued as whispers began surfacing on Twitter. An indistinct video emerged, showing a composed woman dressed in a navy blazer being escorted off a plane from first class. A caption read, "Her seat was hers. They removed her anyway." Then another clip appeared. Someone captured the moment when security personnel approached her on video. The audio was faint, but her body language spoke volumes. Calm yet clearly irritated. Soon, texts mentioning airlines began to pop up all over social media. Shortly after, someone figured out which flight it was. Less than 2 hours later, Simone Banner's name surged into trending topics. Headlines quickly followed suit. Black CEO removed from flight despite valid ticket. Simone Banner terminates $600 million Malazar deal following airline incident, and Avalon Dynamics faces backlash after silent partner walks. A hush fell over their boardroom as they absorbed the impact of these revelations. A junior executive accessed a Bloomberg profile and discovered that Banner Systems is completely privately owned. The revelation was unexpected. They were on the verge of acquiring a company led by its sole owner, an African-American female CEO. Without realizing it, another team member noted her impressive track record. She had been developing this technology discreetly for 8 years, with no leaks or publicity. Mitchell was visibly frustrated. They hadn't even known what she looked like, because they'd never considered investigating further. There was another bout of silence before someone from marketing speculated aloud whether the recent plane incident might have influenced her decision to withdraw from negotiations. Mitchell remained silent, though the answer was obvious to all. Beyond the glass walls, stock prices were already declining. Initially, Simone refrained from making a statement. Instead, she observed everything from her office barefoot, while drinking from a chip mug bearing the words, "Still I rise." Headlines proliferated like dominoes falling. In sequence, video snippets appeared across all feeds, and comment sections swelled with activity. Black business leaders, civil rights attorneys, former colleagues voiced their opinions, not surprised by what transpired but certainly focused on it now. By the second day, Avalon's stock had fallen by 7%. By the third day, airlines were offering half-hearted apologies, reassessing protocols, and frantically managing their public image. On the fourth day, Simone opened her email to draft a message meant for anyone it might concern. She then shared this statement with everyone. Statement from Simone Banner: I was removed from an airplane because someone believed I didn't deserve to sit in a seat I'd paid for, not due to any threat or policy violation, but purely based on perception. You observed a black woman in first class and deemed it suspicious. You neither asked for my name nor questioned your bias, opting instead to silently watch. I remained quiet, compliant, and composed as I exited the plane. Just hours later, I terminate a $600 million agreement, not out of revenge but from clarity. This situation transcends business. It's about dignity. Me, dignity isn't something you can purchase. This statement quickly circulated on various platforms and was soon quoted by prominent outlets like Fortune, CNN, The Verge, and TechCrunch. People shared it with their own experiences, recounting instances when they were scrutinized or second-guessed despite having rightful access. Avalon Dynamics couldn't salvage the deal. Investors began probing more rigorously. By quarter's end, there was a complete board overhaul, but none of this affected Simone. She avoided mentioning the airline's name and paid no attention to identifying the security guards involved. She didn't need to, because her message hit home. You cannot judge someone's worth based on appearances alone. Remember, just because someone remains silent in the face of disrespect doesn't mean they won't make a decision that could alter everything. Next time you encounter someone unexpectedly, reconsider before presuming they're out of place. They might be pivotal to your organization's existence or demise. Consider what your silence costs you. Voice concerns, strive for improvement, and show respect to others, particularly when no one is observing.